Okay. Now that we have our technical issues squared away, I would like to welcome everyone to Commissioners Court. Before we get started, we'll open with prayer and pledges, if you would. Commissioner McCann will lead us in the pledge. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you. We thank you for the blessings that we have individually and as a nation. Father, we ask you to be with us during this time and to give us the discernment and the understanding and the insight as the decisions that we make here today. Lord, we ask that you bless all in our company and all under our authority. We ask that you bring a sense of grace, peace, and understanding. Father, we ask you to be with us and to guide us, and in the end, we will give you all the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right. The time is 9:05. We will call Commissioners Court to order. We do have a quorum. And our first item up this morning is citizens' comments. And we do have two today. One wishes to speak here at the beginning of the meeting, and the other individual wishes to speak when the item is called. Both of these items are pertaining to item number 2, which is the consider and take action on extending the public health emergency declaration and the inclusion of additional emergency orders of the court. I remind everyone that is participating that you are given 3 minutes to discuss or to give the information that you wish to the court. The court will be listening to what you have to say, and that we ask that all decorum be followed. So with this, the citizens' comments portion, individual that we have asking to speak at this moment is a Mr. Jeff Weinstein. Mr. Weinstein, can you hear us?
Yes, Judge, I sure can.
Okay, you have 3 minutes. If you would, please give your name and address.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate it. My name is Jeff Weinstein. I live at 4697 Dickens Lane in Athens, Henderson County, just outside of the Loop. I'm asking the court to not only extend the March 24 emergency declaration concerning COVID-19, but to also enter a stay home, stay safe declaration. By now, it should be obvious to the court that while many Henderson County residents are trying to comply with appropriate social distancing, there are also too many that are not. In a recent poll in the Athens Daily Review, 1 in 5 respondents said they do not take the pandemic seriously. 1 in 3 said they were somewhat concerned. I've heard public officials attempt to shift the burden of safeguarding the public from the government to individuals. Call it personal responsibility, call it whatever you want. The consequences are the same no matter which label we use. The absence of a declaration, stay home, stay safe, allows the uninformed of those who simply do not care to muddle through on their own, ultimately exposing more of us to the dangers of the virus. To allow citizens to stay out now against all evidence-based recommendations, including the nation's leading expert, Dr. Fauci, is to reveal oneself to be in denial. And knowing many of you personally, I choose to believe this is not the case. I choose to believe that during these last 14 days, you too have learned that a declaration to stay home, stay safe is needed more now than ever before. Please do not rely upon the governor who's decided to thread the needle so that no side can say he either did or did not enter a similar declaration. At last count, over 500 people signed the petition I put online requesting that this court enter a declaration of stay home, stay safe. These Henderson County citizens want you to consider that the only cure we have for the virus today is to reduce opportunities for people to interact face to face and infect each other. An order requiring stay at home is the only way to enforce the social distancing cure than we currently have. On behalf of these 500 concerned citizens, we implore this court to not only extend the emergency declaration previously entered, but to enter a stay home, stay safe declaration. In the name of public safety, please enter this declaration to help save lives and keep the transmission of this horrible virus to a minimum. Thank you for consideration. God bless each of you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for your time. Okay, item 1 is consider and take action on minutes from previously held meeting of Commissioners Court on March the 31st, 2020. Are there any additions, deletions, or comments to the minutes? Hearing none, entertain a motion.
Hearing none, Judge, I move the minutes from the previously held meeting of Commissioners Court on March the 31st, 2020.
I'll second his motion, Judge.
Motion made by Commissioner Tooley, second by Commissioner Thomas to approve the minutes of the Commissioners Court from March 31st, 2020 as presented. All those in favor? Item passes. Item number 2, consider and take, item number 2, which is the consider and take action to extend the public health emergency declaration and the inclusion of additional emergency orders of the court. And at this time, we have Mr. Shavira, who would like to present his remarks to the court. Mr. Shavira?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. You have.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. You have 3 minutes, sir. Please begin and give your name and address if you would, please.
All right. Sure. I want to correct something. I noticed I had a typo on our address. It's 1206, not 1296. East Place in Tool, which hopefully you had my response I had made over the internet because your assistant sent me the response you did.
Yes, sir, we do.
I'm, of course, totally opposed extending the ordinance which you had before because I'm basing my opinion not on computer projections but on the reality of the situation. We're talking about a county with lots and lots of people and lots of businesses. And only four count 1, 2, 3, 4 reported cases of the virus in Henderson County at this time. What could compel the court to think they need to shut down every business, put so many people out of work and inconvenience people just because the big counties are doing that? Governor Abbott has shown discreet approaches to this because he knows there are many counties in Texas that have less than one, have none. In fact, if you were to look at the counties in Texas more recently, there were of the 254 counties in Texas, there were only about 60 that made the list of having any cases, and 20 of those were 2 or less. It hardly seems like a demand for shutting down all these businesses and putting people out of work. That is the main thing, and inconvenience people. Secondarily to that, if you see my note, I would ask if you do continue this decree or this edict, whatever it is called, that you consider putting fitness centers in a business of necessity for those of us who use it and have no other choice, trapped in our houses to get exercise. I'm very limited in my ability to walk any distance, and my regular exercise routine is to ride on a stationary bicycle, which we don't have one here in the house. But I use the Anytime Fitness store in Gun Barrel City on a regular basis. And when I'm in there on a regular basis, there are at most a half a dozen people in the facility, which is several thousand square feet. I can't say exactly, but it is a huge facility. If you've never been there, it's in that Gun Barrel shopping center over near Walmart. I invite you to go by and look at it. It's outfitted with antibacterial cleansers on almost every station. It's got rags to wipe down before and after you work out, and it's very attentively done by the people who use it. And I would ask if you would include that and allow the fitness center operators to open that business again. And it's limited entry by a pass key, and you could easily regulate the number of people in there at any one time, let's say 10 people. by limiting cutting off the automatic pass keys. So I'm just asking you to please consider those of us who are greatly inconvenienced by this and don't see the need for a blanket shutdown of businesses.
Mr. Severa, I'm sorry,
Henderson County.
Mr. Severa, I am sorry, your time has elapsed. We thank you for your input.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, and I will recall the item number for clarification. It is item 2. Consider and take action to extend the public health emergency declaration and the inclusion of additional emergency orders of the court. We have with us here our county attorney, who, gentlemen, as we all know, the effort that has been put into this document over the last 10 days has been extraordinary. I will give it to our county attorney here to start our discussion off, to inform the public and to get us a position on where we're at.
Well, good morning, Court. I've prepared 2 separate documents for the court's consideration today. I did it in 2 separate documents because I don't really know what the court is going to do with respect to additional orders. The first document, we will discuss it first, is the actual just extending of our local declaration under the Government Code, Chapter 418. We previously had done it for 2 weeks. That 2 weeks was set to expire today. So if the court takes no action, of course, our emergency declaration would end today. And so what I've proposed in the order, that we extend it to run with the governor's order and extend it until April 30th of the month. And that's just continuing our state of emergency in the county. Judge, you want me to address them both at the same time?
Would you please? Because there are, like I said, there are 2 documents.
Right. So that one, I think, that one seems pretty easy. I don't think this is a situation where we would consider not extending the emergency. The second is, of course, the longer order. Around 22 pages long. And that's the one that I'd like to take a little bit of time and talk about. I know each of you have heard from a lot of people. I will tell you my opinion is it's probably split down the middle at 50-50. If I had to gauge a little bit, there might be more of the public that is not in favor of this order than would be for it. Again, that's not a scientific study that I've done. But you understand, I hear from a lot of people. I think that what I also realize that you do is, again, look at our speakers today. Out of everybody that could have signed up for a public comment, we're split 50-50, one wanting and one not. I think there is a lot of confusion out there, a lot of misinformation. I'd like to take a little bit of time to address that. And it's the one that I've openly spoke out against, and that's Facebook. What I would like to, and now I'm not necessarily speaking to the public, or not necessarily speaking to the court, but speaking to the public. There is a mountain of misinformation and untruths on Facebook, and I wish the public could just realize that I'm telling you, it's worse in this pandemic than I've seen before. Just yesterday, and I'm not talking about just individuals. Just yesterday, we had KLTV in Tyler produce an article that just was not factually accurate. And they reported that Henderson County officials had reported to them our 5th and 6th case. That's just untrue. We haven't received any report of a 5th or 6th, nor have we reported that information to anybody. We are still at 4 confirmed positives in the cases. But what that did is it fueled the fodder on Facebook. People need to realize there are a lot of people posting on Facebook with completely insincere motives behind posting. They have personal agendas, business agendas. There's other reasons. I've seen some of that. I've seen people that go on there and they're posting something not out of sincere concern, but some people just want to fuel the drama. People really need to take that in consideration when getting their information off of Facebook. We have put out my contact information. I'll say it now and I'll probably come back and say it again. cdavis@henderson-county.com. If you want to know what official information is out there, send me an email. A lot of people are emailing, and those people would be able to tell you I do respond to those as I get those. So with that in mind, what I want to do is I want to break down this order and explain the orders and explain how they work. I hear confusion even in one of the commenters today about the gyms and fitness centers. And so I'm going to break it up into three categories. There's three different categories we can look at that are addressed when it comes down to the essential businesses. The essential business list, that is actually a list that was produced by what we call CISA, C-I-S-A, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, it's CISA. That is a division of the federal government, Homeland Security. They are the one that developed and created what they call the CISA 2.0 list. There was a previous version. They included some other businesses, and it's now the CISA 2.0 list of essential businesses. That is the list that Governor Abbott has adopted. And so I'll talk about that a little more in detail. So what you have is three categories. You have one category of businesses where the governor has said they cannot operate. And let's address those right off the bat because they will be the easiest to address. Those are in the Governor's Executive Order GA-14. Those are bars, gyms, massage establishments, tattoo studios, piercing studios, or cosmetology salons. Cosmetology salons includes pretty much all of your salons, your nail salons, your hairstylists, and your barbers. It also includes restaurants and food courts, but allows them to operate takeout or drive-through only. So that is the easiest category of these three businesses that I'm going to address, are those. The governor has specifically said these businesses should not and cannot operate. We as a county have no ability to override that. We have no ability to come in and say, we're going to allow the salons and the barbers and the gyms and the restaurants to do dine-in. The governor has made that clear. It's in his order. And so that's the easiest category because we can't address it.
Not to cut you off, that's the second paragraph in page 3 of the governor's order.
Correct, correct. And they are specifically listed. So beyond that, you have two remaining categories. You have those businesses that are essential businesses as defined by the CISA 2.0 list, and then you have those businesses that would be deemed, everything outside of that would be deemed or considered non-essential. The governor also, in Executive Order GA-14, I didn't have this marked, so it took me a minute to get to it, but it says, this executive order shall supersede any conflicting order issued by local officials in response to COVID-19, but only to the extent that such a local order restricts essential services. So what he's saying is that this CISA 2.0 list of essential business, those are the essential businesses that we're bound to follow. Banks and financial institutions are on that list. We cannot declare today that banks and financial institutions are non-essential. And I'm just picking on banks because that's an easy one, but pick any other one. Construction, grocery stores, gas stations, any of them. We have to go by that essential list. Everything else is non-essential. So that's kind of the basics. I personally, as many of you know, have been very resistant to a stay-in-place order, shelter order, stay-safe order. I don't want to get into the semantics, and I believe a lot of that is just that. It's semantics of the word. They all seek to accomplish the same thing, which is to reduce or slow the spread of the COVID-19 virus. But what has not settled well with me is we delineated exactly what that CISA list in the order. That's why our order is 22 pages. I've seen a lot of cities and a lot of counties, they'll do a 2 or 3 or 4 page order, and they just refer to the Homeland Security link like the governor did. That's creating a lot of confusion. I think there's a lot of people out there that want these stay at home or stay in place orders, and they don't realize how broad the essential business list is. But it's 22 pages of different businesses. Covers most all sectors of your retail. The businesses that I have found that are not covered are essentially your jewelry stores, your small boutique shops, clothing stores, your pet grooming places, your dog groomers. I had florists on that list for a long time. And then I was notified yesterday by a florist that the Texas Department of Agriculture is taking the position that they're covered under all of the ag exemptions. And Judge, tell me if I'm going too long, but if I've got time, I'll go through.
Cool. Please do.
And I'm not going to go through the whole paragraphs, but there's a healthcare. Starts off with healthcare and public health exemptions. Law enforcement and first responders. Food and agriculture has 15 different categories. If you're related in any way to food or agriculture business, just like floral shops, again, when I heard that, we were telling floral shops to operate as the governor had instructed. You're non-essential. But when I hear that, the ag department, I say, you know what? Reading this order, they probably do meet the CISA definition. The energy industry, the electricity industry, the petroleum industry, any natural gas or gas components industry, water and wastewater, businesses related to transportation and logistics. I've had people call me and ask about some of the cities that have passed these. Well, why are car dealers and mechanic shops still open? Because they're included as an essential business under the transportation and logistics section of the CISA document. So your car dealers and your automobile places, public works and infrastructure, communications, information technology, your communications. Again, another question I've had is, well, why are cell phone companies, even still open? Well, they're included under the communications sector as an essential business. IT businesses, if you're related to IT, you're still in business. A lot of these would cover if you're a wholesaler to a retailer that's an essential business. We've had that come up where maybe you operate a non-essential business, but you're a wholesaler to gas stations, which gas stations are essential businesses. You're accepted from these orders. Other community or government-based operations, a lot of your nonprofits would fall under there. They're non-essential businesses. Critical manufacturing, hazardous materials, financial services. Had somebody ask me about pawn shops. Pawn shops are essential businesses because they operate under a license that has to do with financial services. They are considered they're an essential business. Chemical, defense, and industrial-based businesses. Commercial facilities, that's the one that talked about the wholesalers, and also covers your residential service people. So does the next one, residential shelter facilities and services. Those two categories pretty much cover any type of construction. I've had a lot of contractors that have called me, but essentially, if you're working in construction, you're an essential business. Even down to landscapers, pool cleaning people, all of those are essential businesses. Not because I say they are, but because CISA has said they are in the CISA document. We're almost to the end, I think. And then the last one is certain hygiene products and services. That would be your big one on that list would be your laundromats, dry cleaners. Those are all considered essential businesses under the CISA list. Cleaning companies, so like your carpet cleaning companies and all of those would also be considered under there. So that is the Homeland Security list of essential businesses that the governor has now adopted, and then said that local municipalities and local governments have no ability to change. So back to my resistance to the order. When I've looked at this, there's only a handful of businesses in our county that this is going to end up affecting. And that handful tends to be your locally owned and operated businesses. Your small business people that are going to be hurt the worst. We're not going to affect the Lowe's and the Home Depots and the McCoys and the Walmarts of the world. Corporate America is going to be fine under the CISA list. It's going to be your small businesses. So again, I'm speaking to you personally when people say, are you for this? I haven't been. That's not to say that I'm not for it today. I think there's some good reasons that we get into, that I will get into as to why. But I'm just explaining, one, to the people out there how broad this list is, and I'll come back to enforcement at the end. But so I've kind of told you what I view to be the bad is to me, I just personally, I don't like the aspect of any government at any level coming into small business owners saying, we're going to pick you and say you have to close and the rest of the shops are up and running. I will disagree with the commenter today. I think all of this comes back to individual and personal responsibility, and I don't think it's up to the government to control people's behavior. I think one of our problems with our society is people have become too dependent upon the government to fix their problems instead of looking at their neighbors and their churches and the other places that they should be looking. We can't do anything about that and can fix this. But this is a personal responsibility issue. The governor's order was specific and particular to individuals. So I think the governor's order is in line with this as an individual and personal responsibility. On the flip side, we do have a viral pandemic that is a worldwide pandemic that is growing and spreading. We see the numbers in neighboring and surrounding counties that are growing every day. And yesterday there was some what I would call substantial increases in some counties like Smith and Kaufman and even Van Zant picked up some new ones, and that is concerning. It's concerning. I've already know people that have been affected by this virus personally, and I know that there will be some continue to that. And so that, you know, there is some argument that I do think, because of where we're at, whether I agree with it or not, that there's a certain segment of our society that needs to hear from the local government, this is what you have to do. You need to be staying in place and not running all over town doing your personal errands. That is a very good argument and a very valid argument, and I do think that again, although unfortunate, it's necessary at this time. I also think that another thing that changed my mind is what we've had is, in our county, we've had some municipalities, and they went out and they each passed their own local control orders. And so those orders can differ. You know, they're all different, and they're all doing a little bit different thing. That's only added to the confusion and the misinformation that's out there. And you know, I know that because we have businesses that operate in two different cities that are operating in two different ways. And then you have people operating in counties that are operating in different ways from the people that are in the cities. And so what a county order would do is it would clean that up. It would come in and it would say, because our order would supersede any order of any municipality in the county. So if we pass this order today, it's going to clean that up. And the standard that's applicable to Athens is going to be applicable to Chandler, Malakoff, Trinidad, Gun Barrel, Seven Points, and every other city and every other unincorporated area of the county, and we're all going to be one. I think there's great value in that, and probably something that at this point is needed. And then the last thing that has I guess softened my original stance on these is that what I included in the order to address my concerns about the small businesses is we included a locked door policy that on the order is on page 3. I think.
Yes,
on page 3.
Page 3, subparagraph B.
And what this does is requires that those non-essential businesses, if they can meet a number of criteria, they can operate on some level. And that criteria is they have to be 10 or fewer people at one physical location that they conduct business at. They have to operate with those 10 or fewer people in compliance with all CDC guidelines and recommendations, which means their employees have to be able to maintain social distancing while at work. You can't have employees crowded on top of each other, but if they've got a work area that they can spread out all of the disinfecting and cleaning and all of that. if they keep the front door of their business locked and closed to the public, they can still conduct business over the telephone, over the internet, do curbside pickup, do home delivery, and things of that nature. And y'all know, this is just the order that I drafted, and this is what I'm suggesting for the court. Because what I hear from a lot of these small and businesses that are going to be affected most is, that none of this makes sense. I can't keep my small boutique open or my shop that might see 15 or 20 customers a day, and yet we're all free to run down to Walmart and bump shoulders with 700 other people. We live in communities, and you think about it, and I don't mean to just pick on Walmart, but that's just one big one. I mean, there's probably others, Lowe's and other hardware stores and other businesses that people are going to go out and do. And so this, I think, helps alleviate some of those concerns about us just completely shutting down and completely closing those businesses. On the enforcement issue, because I mentioned I would come back to this, and I'm almost through with what I have, and I'll field questions from you guys. There's a lot of questions out there and a lot of issues about enforcing. And what we are looking for out of any of these orders, and I don't care if it's a state order or a county government order or a municipality order, is we're looking for substantial compliance from the public. And I know that if the court passes this, we're going to be bombarded with questions from people on us enforcing these. But I want y'all to know, and I want the public to know, that what we are looking for is substantial compliance. I also think my locked door provision may help get us some substantial compliance, and I'll give you a good example, that flower shop that I was telling you about, one of them. I've heard from a lot of flower shops over the last week. But we had told a lot of them that we're suggesting that they go to a locked door policy and go ahead and begin to operate as I've laid out in my order, that would be our recommendation. We say you're not ordered to by local government, but that would be the safest and the best practices. I told you I had one call me back yesterday and said, hey, we talked to the ag department, and they said we're exempt or as an essential business anyway because we're covered under agriculture. And then they said, but you know what? Even though they told us that, we've been operating since we talked to you last week under the locked door policy, and we're going to continue to operate under the locked door policy because we can, and we think that's the right thing to do. That's the response that I think you get from some of these small businesses versus going in and saying, you're just shut down for a month. That's one thing. The other thing is, as I explained it to somebody else the other day, because like I said, we get a lot of calls saying, why isn't the sheriff going out and arresting everybody or writing a whole bunch of tickets and things like that. And so I told somebody the other day, I said, look, these are no different than speeding, is the best analogy that I could come up with. We have speeding laws throughout the state of Texas on every interstate that tells us what speed to drive, and it's against the law. But would anybody sit here and realistically expect that DPS is going to be able to stop 100% of the speeders out there? No. Do you think we even stop 50% of the speeders out there? No. It's probably some great lower percentage, but we do enough to get that voluntary compliance with those laws that people don't disregard them. So will there be violations of these orders? And again, I'm not necessarily talking about a county order, but state orders, local orders, absolutely there will be, just like there's violations of your speeding laws. Will there be some citations issued? Yeah, there will be some citations issued. And what you hope is that the ones that are issued are enough to get the rest of us to substantially comply, just like I do with the speeding laws. I usually try to stay around 5 miles over when I'm driving. I haven't had a ticket in years, but yet I'm still substantially complying with the laws. That doesn't mean you're going to get 100% compliance just because the Commissioner's Court passes an order. That's all I kind of wanted to mention on compliance. The other thing I guess I would mention that I think people lose sight of, I'm guilty of this, I lose sight of it myself, but none of this is about controlling the spread of the virus or the COVID-19. or I guess I shouldn't say controlling, but eliminating the spread of COVID-19. We couldn't stop this virus coming 7,000 miles across an ocean to get here. Once it was in the United States, we are not going to stop the spread or eliminate the spread, and I don't care at any level, federal, state, or local, that's not been the goal. The goal has been to control and slow the spread of this virus so that we do not overburden our healthcare system and we can deal with it. To also distance ourselves between the virus and allowing our medical professionals to develop treatments and vaccines and things of that nature for where hopefully we can slow it. And so, that's one thing that I see. I think a lot of people are too focused on, we've gotten some calls from people that want the sheriff to shut our county borders down and stop every car coming into the county, kind of like the governor's done with Louisiana. Yeah, that's probably the only way you could absolutely control it, and it's too late for that. So, nor would we want to do that, I don't think. So, that's all I had.
Would
So,
you kind of
question?
explain the difference between this and a shelter in place? What, if there was a shelter in place, how would it affect these businesses that we've talked about here?
I'll try my best to explain it, which it is. I think a lot of that is just semantics. I have been asked that from a lot of different people. Got asked that from a mayor yesterday and responded to him. And my response is, I think a lot of that you're just seeing wordsmithing, and it's a pure matter of semantics, whether you use shelter in place or remain in place. Now, what they will say is that the argument would be that if I order you to remain at your place of residence, or remain where you are, stay in place, I'm giving you an order to stay there. As one example that's been used is that I guess if we issued a remain in place order, that everybody that's driving their car at the time we sign the order should pull over. Again, I think that's silly. I think it's a silly interpretation. I think it's a matter of semantics. But on the residence, if I order you to remain at your residence, that means you should remain at your residence. Mm-hmm. Where shelter can be construed is, you guys know, I've been at work for the most part, every day the last week, other than when I've had kid duty for my wife. But I'm still sheltering at my residence. My residence is providing me shelter, roof over my head. That is my home. That is my shelter. Which means the argument is you can shelter in place and not necessarily remain at your home. That's kind of the differentiation. The reason I say it's a matter of semantics, though, it is beyond that, all of these orders do exactly the same thing. Yes, remain has a different meaning than shelter. But then you're still subject to the essential activities and the essential businesses that have been put out by CISA. So even if I order you to remain at your house rather than shelter at your house, you're still allowed to leave your house for essentials. Right. And that's another thing I didn't touch on. That's also some confusion. We've gotten some emails and some phone calls from people when their municipalities issued orders that said, well, can I not go get groceries? Or what if my kid gets sick? Do I have to stay at home? Because we do have some municipalities that have these. And of course, we tell them, and the public needs to understand, this does not prevent you from going out and meeting your essential needs. If you need to go to the grocery store, go to the grocery store. If you need medical treatment, go seek medical treatment. If you have a family or a loved one that needs food or caretaking or medical conditions, you are free to go care for that loved one and that family member.
But I would encourage them that if they do get out, not to take 2 or 3 of the family members with you. If they could just do it by themselves, it would be a whole lot better.
You're absolutely right, and again, we see some of that, and I will tell you that we have 5 kids that have asked when we go to the store, can we get out and go in? And I'll tell you, no, we're saying no, you can't get out and go in. Either me or Sheila, we're going in to get what we need, and that's it. But again, you can walk in a lot of stores, and you see a lot of families still bringing their kids in there, and that really is the type of stuff that needs to stop.
That's right.
But there is no mechanism to make that stop. That's the problem with the way that the governor's order is written.
Yes, and there's no good mechanism. Anderson County issued a separate order that, and again, I don't know from an enforcement side how you would enforce it, but they in essence ordered that only one member of a family or household enter a store at one time.
Right.
So, I mean, but you could try some additional control measures or orders like that, but.
Where can the general public get a copy of this and read it for themselves?
If they want to, I assume we'll post it on the
It
website?
will be posted, and even in the order, it says for immediate general circulation.
Okay.
So it will be made available to all.
Good.
I'm sure we'll send it out to the media outlets, so they will have a copy.
Okay, good.
We will post it on the website. My email address that I said earlier is in this order, and one thing we have said is it gives me and Joy Kimbrough the ability to issue any clarifications to this order. Because I can tell you, I have gotten a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails from questions over the last few weeks from individuals and businesses alike. And, my opinion is I don't think we can grant variances or waivers. I've had some calls on that. Can you grant a waiver or variance from the governor's order? No, we can't. The governor's order is what the governor's order is. We can't grant waivers or exceptions. I do think that we can clarify, because I will tell you there's some confusing hypotheticals that somebody can come up with as to whether or not their business qualifies or doesn't qualify, and what this ramification is to their business. And again, those are the types of things that email me. The order actually directs that for any clarification that it has to come through me and Joy Kimbrough, and that they have to submit it in writing to my email address of cdavis@henderson-county.com. There's a good reason that we're doing that, is we don't want different interpretations out there. One of the things that I spend a big part of my days doing now is constant contact with local law enforcement, because they all have questions about, well, what are we telling people? And people may tell them something different. People may say, my commissioner told me that it was okay if I did this. And so we're trying to streamline that down to one person, and that one person being me.
What the public doesn't realize is that I don't believe they know that we're meeting twice a day, every day, other than the weekends, and sometimes the judge spends the weekends on this. So it's a lot of the behind the scenes that's happening that they don't realize. Joy Kimbrough, the emergency management, Judge McKinney, Fire Marshal, the Sheriff Hillhouse, and all the commissioners, the audit office, the county attorney, and meet twice a day to keep on top of this. And I appreciate everything that the judge does to keep us informed, and our attorney also.
And that is, I think that's a great point that needs to be emphasized, is I would argue that there's nobody in this county that knows more and is more involved than the people sitting in this room in the administration of this. There's nobody that's communicating daily with Net Health. We had about 4 hours of meetings yesterday, making decisions. There's nobody else that's in communication with the administration, directly with the administration of the hospitals every single day, understanding what their needs are, knowing what they want. There's nobody else that's talking with the doctors. We talk to the doctors at the local level on a and I'm glad you pointed that out, because the public needs to understand that, and it's a lot easier to play county government leader from your recliner than it is to actually come up here and do one of these jobs. And that's not a knock on anybody. It's a lot of that's human nature. I'm during football season, I'm the best coach Dallas Cowboys have. I still say they pay too much for Zeke. But again, I know more about the Dallas Cowboys and how to get them back to a Super Bowl than the 27 coaches they have there on the sidelines. Some of that is human nature, but the public needs to hear that. The public needs to say, look, we do this. I've delegated everything that pretty much, other than COVID-19, down to my office to handle. It's all been delegated downstream, and I spend 10 hours a day working on this, not counting the late night emails and phone calls.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yeah, I just like to add, of course, like Commissioner Cheney said, the EOC's been meeting for 3 weeks. We've been twice a day. My phone's getting blown up pretty often by, totally every day by our judge. He's sending us information. We're sharing it. I got Clint, I've called Clint so much, our county attorney, asking questions about my questions, my essential businesses in Precinct 1. And when I drive through the county, I also, and a question comes up, and I immediately text or call Clint. And I said, what are your thoughts on this business? And so there's a lot of thought process going into this. It's not just somebody up here making decisions that don't affect everybody. It's really hard decision to make. But confusion is what I'm hearing, and when I'm out and about, I hear a lot of confusion. Which order are we taking? Are we the state, the SISA? There's some federal and state issues that people do not understand. And then, of course, I don't know why some are asking why we haven't, some are saying we shouldn't. It's about 50-50. Road and bridge is an essential. We've been out fixing roads the best we can, and we use social distancing. We wash our hands constantly, and I tell my employees to keep back from the public, wash your hands, social distance. They're doing a great job. And they're hearing some confusion also about it. So I think an order like this, to me, straightens out and answers some of the questions. I know there's still going to be others. I thought about one just now, marine repair, boat repair. I got them in, we have my precinct's on the lake, so marine repair, I'm assuming that falls under the state.
Yeah, and it does. It's in there as an essential business. And I also should point out, just because I take that position on essential businesses, is I had talked to one and talked to them about operating their business as a locked door business. I don't mean to interrupt, Commissioner, but again, we talked and they were okay with that. They said, you know what, most of our business is service related anyway.
Right.
They can pay with credit card over the phone, and they don't have to come inside. We can meet them out at the curb and hook their boat up, and they can drop it off and let it go. That's why I like the provision that I included in there. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
But no, and then the locked door policy that you put in, the order, to me is a great way for some of these businesses, small businesses, to continue to work. And I'm like you, I just hate it when the big stores are open and they're crowded and I see too many people. And then when I go to the little mom and pops and they're having to close. So this order would help, I think, with the small businesses, and I think it's a great idea. And I really appreciate the time you spend. I know Clint works continually. I don't know that, and I'll tell him, I'm sorry I call you or text you, and he said, no, that's fine. And all the court is worked together. I know we've tried to set our meetings where we are trying to attend some of these emergency operations meeting. We have a commissioner at every meeting. And I think we're getting some good information. Our sheriff is constantly, and our fire marshal, our county auditor, our emergency management coordinator, just like Melbourne said, we're working together and trying to come up with a better thing for everybody in the county. And I know we've talked about PPE, providing PPE and having this, and they're doing a great job. We're handling it. I don't do Facebook, so I don't know the stories, but I do want to tell people if they'll make decisions from their heart and from their family perspective, I think they can make good decisions. I hate the government having to tell us what to do, but again, I do like your order, and I appreciate all the hard work and the work that our judge and the committee has done again, and the confusion is still going to be there, I think, but this would help with the confusion, I think, would be my positive about it.
I agree.
Okay.
Mr. Taylor?
So underneath the GA-14, the governor's order, is there, with those small businesses that we're talking about, non-essentials with the locked door policy, are we adding that, are we taking something out of his GA-14 to put that in our?
We are, I think the way to say that is we are adding something to ours that's not in his, and we are doing that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then with the with all those small businesses and with all the towns that are within Henderson County, are we trying to communicate where the Commissioners Court might have be going to and different stuff like that, or how are we communicating that out to our cities?
We are sending them out information.
Is Joy the one that would be doing the contact with
Yes.
the mayors?
Yes, yeah. And we would be sending them, of course, there was an email that went out to all of them yesterday. And then what we would do is email them a copy of this order. If the court passes it, if it's signed, we would need to email them a copy of that order. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are in, like I said, we're fairly in regular contact with me. You know, a lot of them that have even issued, not all of them, a lot of them that have issued their orders have been in regular contact with me, just keeping me in the loop as to what they're doing, and then I feed that back to county judge, and I know sometimes it's vice versa. Sometimes they're in regular contact with the county judge, and he's feeding the information the other way.
So we're not contacting the cities. The cities are being.
I think it's some of both. I think we are contacting them, but we're also leaving it up to them to contact us.
Okay.
You know, and again, if they've got you know, issues or concerns, then they just need to reach out to one of us and contact us.
So, Commissioner Cheney, I want to say something of what you said. I looked up the definition of shelter in place, and it says it seeks safety within the building one already occupies rather than evacuate the area. And then a stay-at-home order says that is an order for an authority to restrict movement of the population of a mass quarantine strategy for suppressing an epidemic or a pandemic by ordering residents to stay at home. I was for this order 2 or 3 weeks ago. Just because of what we're saying now, we got all the confusion out there. Facebook's blowing up. So, Judge, if you don't mind, I'm going to read this just to get this off my chest.
Go right ahead.
So, first and foremost, my prayers go out to our frontline responders across the county and our nation, any and all of them and their families. And prayers for you, Judge, and to our emergency management team and the support staff and their families. But my question is why do we need to be told time and time again by our government to stay home, wash your hands, and social distance? It's because it's our own good, as well as it is for your kids, my kids, your family, my family, your neighbors and my neighbors, and for our county. And just because we have only 4 cases, that does not mean that we're doing a good job of social distancing. I do Facebook, and I was forwarded an email from unacast.com, UNACAST.com, that tracks our cell phones that says we're failing at social distancing. And so I posted it on my Facebook page. And I only got 2 shares. Usually I get somewhere between 20 and 40 shares and tons of likes. But only 2 people shared this post. I don't know why they chose to look over it. But I think that it was because it was positive, it was truthful news that pertained to them, that they created. Just as yesterday, our state is at a C- for social distancing. Today, or yesterday, our county was a D- and falling. And as individuals currently living within Henderson County, they have been ordered to remain in place at our own house on March the 24th by a Henderson County declaration that was copied from the governor's declaration. To the extent the individuals are using or sharing outdoor spaces, that doesn't mean that you can have a social gathering at your house with other family members. All persons may leave their house just to do essential activities. So let me tell you, this is not a difficult decision for us to make. And I can't speak for this court as a whole, but I do not take this decision lightly. Nor do I think that our residents of Henderson County should take it lightly. We have, for the last 14 days in Henderson County and for the last 30 days as Texans, have been told not to leave your house. Do not social gather and do stay 6 foot apart. Whether it's your town's mayor, our county judge, our governor, or first and foremost, the President of the United States. These are our leaders of today. And so the last thing I say As sobering and as difficult as this is, what are you doing in Henderson County to make a difference? I ask you to stay at home, support your local government, and stay at your place of residence in your county. Thanks, Judge.
Commissioner Camp.
I believe without this order, to take a statement from an earlier speaker, that we are enabling the uninformed. A lot of these orders have came out and caused a lot of confusion. And I think what this order does, I don't think it does anything that the governor has not already done. Which is, just like he said, terrible that the government, big government, has to come in 3 or 4 times and tell people to stay at home. But what this does is controls that confusion, hopefully. There's still going to be some confusion, but hopefully this order will control that confusion, and it spells out what all the essential businesses are, what the non-essentials are, what you can and can't do during this COVID-19 epidemic. The only way to slow this down is social distancing. The only way to slow it down is social distancing and personal choices. And those that live in Henderson County must abide by those 2 things. And we can't force that on anybody. I don't care what rules we make. You have to make the right choices, and you have to social distance during this time. But I do believe that I do like this order in that fashion, is I think it clears up confusion.
Commissioner Cheney, you
Okay, here's
spoke
the bottom
earlier.
line. If you don't do-
Commissioner Cheney, you spoke earlier. Do you have something else to add to it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You know, the bottom line of it is, if you don't do your part, and when you do have to get out and go to the store, wear a mask. I had to go to the store the other day, had a mask on, and me and 2 others was in that store with a mask on. And it's very difficult to do your social distancing when there's people coming up and down the aisle. I try to duck around and do all that thing, but you got to use common sense on this. And if you don't do that, these orders, just like Commissioner said, is no good. So heed to what it says and do it.
Thank you. I'd like to say a few things now that everyone else has had an opportunity, and I agree with every comment that's made here today. Over the last 10 days, since we began to break down the executive order from the governor of Texas, we have a document here that purports, and press releases that purports to be doing everything possible to fight the pandemic. And gentlemen, you know as well as I do that the governor's order limits those items that we can do. The authority that is left remaining of the county is to do a shelter in place. And with the exception of a few non-essential businesses, the federal government has given us this document that dictates what is essential. And according to the governor's order, we cannot touch those items. So we are very limited. In actuality, we have been handcuffed by the governor of Texas in effectively what I consider to be an effective approach to a pandemic. Now, the confusion that has been put out there begins with that order of the governor that has been determined through this long process of grinding this order to powder numerous times. But it always goes back to the very last paragraph. His order shall supersede any conflicting order issued by local officials in response to COVID-19, but only to the extent of such an order restricting essential services, meaning the liberties that are being provided to the citizens of our county are these essential services by direct order of the governor of Texas. We cannot touch those. And we cannot change, it follows on, we cannot change the limit on individuals together, which is 10 people. Those are the controlling. And when you're looking at fighting a pandemic, all the things that common sense tells you that you should do, we are precluded from doing as a county. And that is, you gentlemen and our support staff that is in here with us, that's been in the EOC twice a day, every day, has ground this thing down. And you're exactly right. The confusion of the public. That is why in my original press release, I put out stressing to that public that this, due to our situation, is going to be on them.
That's right.
And there is no other option available to stop this other than the full support of the public. We have put that out time and time again, the media, every which way that you can get to. Because though the perception is that the state of Texas is all powerful, they are very powerful, but they have limited our capability to do anything and tied anything to, in the governor's order, he references the essential services. He does not print it out in his order as such as we have here today.
Yeah.
So therefore, that order can change from day to day, depending on the whims of the federal government. Passes straight down to us. This list that is presented here, if there is a change at the federal level through CISA, this list will change automatically. And that is the issue that needs to be understood, is that when you take a knee-jerk reaction to anything, there's an opportunity to make mistakes. And what we have taken here in this time is to ensure that we meet every possible need. And in this, we went to the extent to speak about helping your neighbors in this order. An essential service line item, Part 3B, you are allowed to obtain necessary service or supplies for yourselves and your family or a household member, or to deliver those services or supply to others, and any other household consumer products necessary to maintain the safety, sanitation, and essential operations of residents. We make provisions for people in our order to help people. Because then again, as we have said here, every one of us, that this is an individual responsibility, time and time again. There is another matter in this order that, gentlemen, if you will look on the first page, we have in here in the first sentence of item A, they are ordered to remain and shelter at their place of residence. From what I'm hearing today of this discussion, we need to make a decision if remain should stay in or if it should be shelter from the definition that Commissioner Tooley gave us here today. In the order, it now says remain and shelter. So through our discussion of the definition of remain and through our definition of shelter, to ensure that there is no confusion, we need to decide today how we will present that. So I put that before you. Will we use remain or shall we use shelter?
Clint, would you give your thoughts on that?
I'll try. I think that's another one that was caused directly by the governor. Think about it.
Exactly.
We had literally dozens of these orders going around. Some use some use verbiage, and then when he rolled out his GA-14, he focused on not using that language, which then got, I think it was Lufkin the very next day, they came out and said they called theirs a stay safe order. And again, and then the focus has been, even with Commissioner Cheney's question and Commissioner Tooley's research and input, here we're back to discussing what I view as semantics. It's not going to change the end game, and I'm not discounting the definitions. I think your definition is appropriate and correct. I don't know that it changes anything. And like I said, if you guys disagree, I just don't think, once you read the remainder of the order, I don't think it's going to change anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't believe with the essential services that either one of them make any difference.
That was my point.
I think we could use remain and shelter at place just like it says, because we still have to allow anybody to perform these essential services. So I don't think it makes a bit of difference.
The reason that I bring it up is because, as the commissioner pointed out, the difference in the definition of the two terms. And since we have both in there, through his speaking toward the definition, that creates more confusion and conflict, having
Well, I didn't
both of
mean
them
to
in
do
there, so.
That was not my deal. My deal is that shelter in place means like there's a disaster, a tornado or something like that.
Right.
When they come across the TV or the airways. The stay-at-home terminology that people have used said, that it was be used during a pandemic. So,
Under that definition, you would go with remain, take shelter out, I mean, if you followed that, yes.
it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. My deal is that we have 4 cases. We haven't seen a rise in our
Right.
cases, and I'm telling them right now from the microphone is that we got to stay at home. And there's 3 places that you need to go: the grocery store, work if you can, and not work at home, and to the grocery store. So if you're doing more than that, how I want to go wet a hook right now, but I'm staying at home. So that's my deal. Is it doesn't matter. You can say you can use another term where it just says stay, and somebody's going to take it and run with it. Remain in shelter at their place, shelter at home, stay at home. However the county attorney says that we need to do it, I think that's the way we need to follow it. And I hate to put that on your back, but that's why you're
If
the
it were
attorney.
me, it would be probably shelter is what I would use, but I'm also okay with leaving both.
The orders that I've seen have not spelled out the essentials. That's what our order does. It does spell out all the essentials. So I don't see how that word's going to make any difference. It's very spelled out in our order. What is an essential business, what is not? That's what I like about our order. The others I've seen are vague and confusing. So.
And that was the purpose for drafting this in
Exactly.
this fashion, and for taking the time to take all the information that we have, to grind it down to find out what would be the exact thing that we needed to dispute and to settle the confusion. And it was, by the reading of the definition, it was an excellent point, because that is the purpose of what we are doing, clearing the confusion. If this court is willing to use the information or the wording we have in now, I am fine with that. Shelter, I am fine with that. But as we have discussed, and as does with all of this, you can get to a point where, we didn't think about that. We didn't think about that. That's why the knee-jerk reaction of jumping at the first sign of any issue can get you down in this confusing hole. So if the court, I am fine with remain in shelter. Myself, I am.
Shelter in place, in other words.
Actually, it says remain and shelter.
First line of 2a on page 3, Commissioner. The other thing we would need would be a start date. I did not fill in the blank for the date to start it. So it does, I did put an expiration date of midnight on April 30th to run concurrent with our emergency declaration. But I did not put a date to start it. Really, with the locked door provision, there's no reason you shouldn't start it ASAP,
Right.
like today.
Today.
Well, it all goes back to personal responsibility.
Yeah, that's right.
End of story, it does. As the commissioners have all said, and as you pointed to earlier, it's about getting compliance more so than punishment. And that's what we believe here this order does. So, gentlemen, is there any more discussion before I call a motion on this item? I would ask that in the motion that it be stated, line number 2, which is the effective and the time, and that we choose a date, which could be today, which is April the 7th.
Which would really take effect tomorrow, because it would be midnight tonight, so it would give us time to get it to the municipalities, which
Right.
again, most of them should by this point know that this is being taken up today, and considered. I
Right.
don't know which way the court will go.
So let me ask you this, once we did this document, would the cities be able to take some non-essentials and keep them shut down?
No, I don't believe so. And I believe that's under the emergency management powers that are laid out in the government code.
It is.
So it's a hierarchy, that it goes from the state can make orders, like the governor has, that we can't change. The county has the ability to make countywide orders that the municipalities can't change.
Okay.
So, and our order specifically says, just like the governor's order says, our order says that this order applies to both incorporated and unincorporated areas of the county, and if this order conflicts with any order of any municipality, this order is controlling.
Are there any other comments?
Churches, we didn't talk about that one. I've talked to a lot of pastors this last week, and I'm just trying to think to make sure we've covered all the discussion, but we are following the exact language, which again, I think we have to, but we did put in there the exact language that the governor used about churches. And what the governor, in essence, in his order said was, if churches can conduct their services remotely, over the internet or some other remote means, they should be conducting them remotely. And then if they can't, they can still do face-to-face or in-person church services, but they must maintain the social distancing and follow the CDC guidelines. And so I've heard from some that are still doing that, but I just explained to them that if you're still conducting services, you need to try to minimize the space or distance, maximize the distance between people, blocking off rows, eliminating rows, making families spread out, making sure they have hand sanitizer on hand, making sure they're coming through and doing a deep cleaning before and after every service, avoiding physical contact, the days of the greeters, greeting everybody at the door.
But stress, that is the state's order. That's the governor's order.
That's the governor's
That's
order.
not ours today.
Right.
That's
But we did
strictly
include it.
coming from them. That's included.
And I don't think we have the ability to change that
change
if we
it.
were inclined to.
Right.
Right. Well, that does bring a good point to another portion in this about the confusion starting from the top down. In GA 14 order, he has a small blurb about churches. Well, then within a few hours, they released 3 pages of guidance on churches stating just exactly what county attorney has stated here. So that's why we felt very important that everything that we have be within a single document to help cut down on that very confusing information. So. Any other comments? Well, hearing none, entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to, pursuant of Section 418-108 of the Government Code, to extend the state of disaster for public health emergencies and remain in shelter, and will continue from April the 7th at midnight until April the 30th at midnight, and that's my motion.
Do we have
Did I cover it all?
Yes, sir.
Would that be April 8th, I believe?
No,
Remain in shelter.
11:59? Okay.
yeah. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cheney, second by Commissioner Tooley, to approve the extension of the public health emergency declaration and the inclusion of these new orders taking effect at 11:59 p.m. on April the 7th, 2020, and continuing until 11:59 p.m. on April 30th, 2020. Any further comment before? Yes.
Don't worry, I'm not objecting. But this has been a hot topic too the last week, and I'll give the sheriff credit. He pointed out that I should mention it, and this is another benefit. One of the issues that we have unique to our county is we have lakes on either end of the county. We also have counties that neighbor us that are larger urban areas that have higher concentration of the COVID-19 virus. We have a lot of individuals that own homes around those different lakes. We've got one in the middle that even has some that are renting those homes out to people that are coming from these high-risk areas for the weekend. We did include a provision in the order to address that, and I'd like to rent it. I say rent it, read it. It shall be unlawful for any person to rent or lease residential premises, RVs, tiny homes, rooms, or other similar separate housing units to any third party as a short-term rental. This order does not apply to hotels or motels that have full-time employees on site for housekeeping. Hotels and motels that have a full-time employees on site are deemed essential. So I wanted to clarify, there's been some confusion around the state with orders. If you're a hotel or motel and you're operating with employees that their primary job duty is going in and cleaning, which all of your hotel and motels do, we're going to allow them. But the Airbnbs and the vacation home rentals where we've been notified of some where they're still bringing 15, 20 people, and they're renting a house on the waterfront of Cedar Creek Lake. And often those 15, 20 people obviously aren't coming out of the same household in Dallas. They could be coming from a multitude of different places. Those are the things that are also causing problems with the spread. I mean, that is exactly the type of behavior that people should be stopping, that they're just not. And it's a sad and unfortunate day that we even have to put that in the order, because people should be stopping that, both the people leasing those houses and the people renting those houses. But I just wanted to make sure that I pointed that out, that was in the order.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comment? If not, all those in favor of the motion? Item passes. I will, let me sign this, if you will, sir. Item number 3, consider and take action to designate a surplus inventory vehicle to be available for the use of county offices if needed. Ms. Lee?
We have the extra vehicle left over from the animal shelter, and there are times that arise when somebody does need a vehicle for a day, 2 days, they don't want to leave it in their inventory all the time. So we like the ability to be able to check that out on an as-needed basis. We can call the asset of the car.
Where's this vehicle going? Maintained?
Out here in the motorbank
Okay.
back parking lot. The keys would reside at the audit office for checkout, much as we do with our procurement cards, so that if it is needed, it can be handled and be an asset for other departments, because they do have a rise from need from time to time for those. Any comments, questions? If not, entertain a motion.
Judge, I'd like to make a motion that we designate the surplus vehicle that we have available for the county, be kept here at the county office for use to be checked out as needed.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Thomas, second by Commissioner Cheney to approve the designation of a surplus inventory vehicle to be available for use of county offices as needed. All those in favor? Item passes. Item 4. Excuse me while I move through my list. Item 4 is receive financial reports. And in our backup, we have the combined JP financial reports for JPs 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And those are available to the public for viewing upon completion of today's Commissioners Court. Item 5 is consider and take action on payroll distributions and accounts cash sheets. We have payroll distributions for biweekly number 7. Any questions or comments? Entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner McCam, second by Commissioner Tooley to approve the payroll distribution disbursements totals for biweekly number 7. All those in favor? Item passes.
Judge.
Yes, sir.
I think you skipped, did you skip 8? Did we do 8? Or is that?
No, sir, we're now moving to number 6.
Sorry, I was ahead of myself.
It happens to me quite often.
I thought we was doing the bills and you skipped over. Sorry.
Item 6, consider and take action on submitted contracts. We have no contracts. Item 7, consider and take action on requests for right-of-way permits. We have none. Item 8, consider and take action on submitted budget amendments. We have none of those. Item 8, consider and take action, item 9, consider and take action on payment of bills. We do have those. Ms. Lee?
Yes, the 2020 bills total $202,657.03.
Commissioner Thomas?
I have no questions, Judge.
Commissioner Tooley?
I have none.
Commissioner McCam?
Done.
Commissioner
I have
Cheney?
none.
Would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the $202,657.03 or 7 cents.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Cheney, second by Commissioner McCam, to approve the fiscal year 2020 bills in the amount of $202,657.03. All those in favor? Item passes. Item 10, consider and take action on submitted plats.
No plats.
We have no plats. Item 11, which is item 11, open and consider bids. We have no bids.
Ooh.
I did have discussions with purchasing earlier, said that she was waiting on direction on one of the bids, if it was ready to go or not, from Road and Bridge. I had that discussion last night. So if that other bid, we need to have conversation to get it put forward. Item number 12 is consider and take action to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner McCam, second by Commissioner Cheney to adjourn. All those in favor? Item passes. Thank you very much.